The highland is one of the regions that make up Colombia's Orinoco region. The region is subject to a prolonged dry season and has acid soils with low fertility. However, the soil characteristics currently do not represent a constraint for the development of corn and soybean crops, as long as the required technologies for soil adaptation are developed. In fact, some companies have been carrying out trials in the adaptation of the land and the planting of new varieties that allow them to obtain better results. Corn and soybean production in Puerto Gaitan, Meta. At the moment we are in the farm La Esperanza, in Alto Neblina, in a small village here in Puerto Gaitan, Meta. The history of the farm started 13 years ago approximately. They started with corn and rice crops, to improve the soil, and through time and the experience they gained, doing soil maintenance, improvements, with lime, to improve the acids, and then let's say, to improve the soil itself. They started with soybeans and rice, and then they moved on to corn. Well, this area has been improving with time. We are growing corn and soybean crops here, in rotation, and the productions are increasing, day by day, or semester by semester, and it is showing the results. Well, actually, personally I was not involved in the beginning of the farm as such. Yes, I arrived, there was already a lot of titled area. They started with 150 hectares producing. The farm itself has 730 hectares, at the moment it has 630 cultivable hectares. They started with 150, and annually they were opening between 50 to 100 hectares per year to reach the limit they have at the moment. Well, these lands have had to be treated. These lands are too acidic, and they have needed a lot of liming, quite periodically, during the time. And now we are seeing the results. Let's say with the passing of time and all that, the quality of the soil has improved a lot, and the crops have had a much more improvable presentation. Well, it improved 90%, 100%, not to exaggerate, but it has improved a lot, even with studies that have been made of soils and all this. At the beginning they limed all the land, but after 5-6 years they had to do a new liming because they saw very bad results in the production. Then they reactivated the liming and added lime and gypsum to the soil, and the production has improved a lot. In this company they are aware that one of the aspects that must be reinforced is research, since a large part of the high productivity and efficiency of these crops in the Orinoco region depends on it, which in turn opens the doors to new varieties of corn and soybeans resistant to the environmental conditions of the eastern plains. Agroinputs is a company in the agro-industrial sector, with 33 years of experience in the sector, specializing in the entire agro-industrial sector. Yes, we have a cluster that integrates all the marketing, from the sale of inputs to farmers, to the marketing of grains. We also have the processing of grains for the agro-industry for human and animal consumption. We are currently working for 3 years in alliance with Syngenta and Nidra, in the introduction of new soybean materials for the highlands, since it represents an important factor in crop rotation, and it is a need that we are seeing in the area. due to the phytosanitary problems presented in the different crops, such as corn, which is the main crop planted here. So we are in the process of studying 8 introduced varieties. And by next year we will have 1-2 varieties registered with the ICA as a solution to the rotation that we need, and to have a soybean that has an optimal sanitary behavior, and productively is profitable and has high productions. So we are here at the La Esperanza farm, where we are evaluating the 8 materials, in order to have in 2022, the first transgenic material to be marketed to farmers. This research is very important because it is an alternative solution for farmers. It reduces the sanitary impact, and it helps us to have an effective rotation, and thus cut the cycles of diseases. That is to say that we plant soybeans in the first semester, and in the second semester, we plant corn. Well, here there is, let's say it has been diversifying, no. Due to different needs, we already have pastures. Already, some trials are managed here permanently. And what we are talking about now, well, the crop rotation, basically you will always find here corn and soybean. Now it is being alternated with some livestock. Here there are 750 hectares. The varieties here are 70, 88, 75, 00. White corn 30 to 39. 66 is a variety. Cerrato has also been managed here. Fundamentally for human consumption. That is to say that it starts for human consumption, but depending on the qualities as such, then it is already classified. It can be used for human consumption or for animal consumption, for concentrated food processes. The soybean crops are not sown, let's say the whole extension, yes, only some areas of 200, 300 hectares are planted, when it is done. The part where, let's say, my work begins, specifically, when we have the crops ready to be cut, then we are very aware basically of the humidity as such, which is, let's say, the most important for us. We constantly take samples, and we make quality analyses, where we can already determine with some accuracy how those crops are going to be, let's say, and decisions are made as to when and at what time it is appropriate to cut them. In the harvests, we have a harvest that is always a little complicated sometimes, which is the middle of the year. The middle of the year, which is where we have the soybean, and then, that is the one that harasses us the most. Because, really the role of everyone here is to try to harvest as close as possible, to be able to plant again the second cycle, which is corn, so it is always a bit busy. Sometimes we have to work late, trying to get the harvest ahead, because we don't count on irrigated land, or anything else, but everything at the same time. Well, here we have had everything from seeders, harrow machinery, we have the harvester as such, fertilizer spreaders, if you understand me. So it is, to have everything up to date, the role as such, my role at the moment, is to be very attentive to all the machinery so that everything flows as much as possible, and that when we need it, the machine is available. We start with the soil preparation. With the implements, the harrow, the tines, everything to start working the soil, and then we start fertilizing, before planting, and then we move on to planting, and from there on, everything that has to do with fertilizers, and spraying and all the crop maintenance. The difficult thing as such? Not really. One tries to give a lot of management, like soils, to try that everything goes perfectly, and in terms of pests and things like that, one has to be very aware of everything, because, as far as I understand, not very expert on the subject, but here let's say the soils have many particles of acid. Some things, they have almost no vegetation, a very light vegetation, and the pastures here, native of the region, are very tiny. Almost no, the soils do not have very deep water inlets or anything. So we have been stipulating all that, giving it management, so that, what is corn and soybean, have very good food from the soil, practically. Subsequently, when we start cutting, we go to the plant, where we first pre-clean the grains in order to separate the impurities from the grain, leaving the grain as clean as possible, in order to, let's say, later move on to the drying systems, as such. Well, basically the plant, at this moment we have 2 silos, with a capacity of 200 tons each, and the dryer as such allows us to store an additional 70 tons. Once the grain is dry, it allows us to have between a year or 2 years of storage. Our idea is to dry and dispatch as soon as possible. We have agreements with factories, with processing plants here in the area. And Bogotá basically consumes almost 90% of what we produce. Well, at the level of the plant as such, we have to try to make the processes as adequate as possible, for which I am a bit reiterative in that we are very interested in taking care of the grain as such, to guarantee our final customer, our final consumer, quality. Quality in the grain, depending on the process for which it has been used. So our work there in the plant is very important. It is very delicate, and that is precisely what we are looking for. Basically, we have to have a very close communication with the farmers, with the machinists, yes, because we are always interested in the care and the non-maltreatment of the grain as such. So basically we have to have a communication, as I was saying before, to avoid or correct. Let's say when they start to cut, sometimes machine calibrations can damage the grain. And the idea is that when the grain enters the plant as such, it should come, as little as possible, as little fractured as. And then at the plant we give it the treatment it requires, to take care of it until the last moment, when the grain is ready for storage as such. Their aim is to promote technological innovation and the development of new products, ensuring their permanence in the cereal market, and to encourage the use of new technologies by other producers in the region. It is fundamental, that is, here, it is necessary to be very clear about what is being done, because here mistakes are, let's say, very costly. So when we do the processes properly, as it should be done, we are guaranteeing in a certain way, the quality, not only for us, let's say as producers, but also for the final consumer, which most of the times are the factories as such. It is definitely Very important, yes, because right now there are many factors that are affecting the crops. That is, it is no longer possible to work with the traditional, yes, because unfortunately the results are not the same. There are external agents that affect a lot, and obviously the new technologies are helping to control precisely those things and to have better results. Efficiency in the processes and higher productivity. The new technologies are fundamental because let's say at this moment here in the Orinoco region, we are in continuous growth, that is, this area is opening up to agriculture day by day. In fact, there are many farmers who are moving to these areas. Here we have very large extensions. Yes, here there is a lot to do, so I think this is an attraction. Big, in terms of agriculture, yes, so I think that there is too much future at this moment. Well, the first thing is, to have the willingness, yes, because in any case, we always find a lot of rejection to change. No. It has always been difficult for human beings, let's say, to accept those things. But definitely, to take advantage of the experiences that have already been lived here, and to look at the results. Yes. That is the way, no, to look at what is already done, what is being done, how the processes are working, and to adopt those positions, that they can also be productive at a given moment. Yes, basically here, well, we are open to that. In fact sometimes we have field days here that we schedule for that purpose, so that the people around us can benefit from the things that are being done here, to learn about the latest technologies. The results, the trials are precisely for that, so that people have the opportunity to see them. The farm had some very hard times, very hard because, really, as far as I can live, in the time that I have been here in the farm, I heard many comments that they were in critical moments, one thing and the other. But the strong hand of the owners in this, were able to take everything forward. Now it is given a very different management, as previously done, and it has been reflected in crops, very good harvests, and has improved a lot, 90–100% of what was previously taken. The Altillanura is a very extensive area. It is the agricultural pantry of Colombia, and it is the future of agriculture in the country. We must strengthen it, introduce new technologies, in order to become more efficient and profitable in a national and international market. I do not aspire to have this for a long time, no. And I hope so, and the endurance of the owners as such, because we try to do our job, maybe yes, and as we have a sense of belonging which is optimal in any worker, which is what I show the most. I feel this as if it belonged to me too, because here is the work, the labor, everything is there, the effort of one. But then the idea is that this continues much longer. I think that in the future, let's say in the medium future, because let's say, those of us who started here, in these areas, are already seeing the results, yes, in all this time, because obviously we have had to go through many situations. But we have taken advantage of those situations and learned a lot. And those who are arriving now, obviously benefit from what has already been done as such. It would be basically, to be open. Let's say this is real, this is not an unattainable dream, This is something that is already giving results. This is something that people, whoever wants agriculture, should take that step. Should take that step here. In this zone. That is, the extensions are very large, there is still a lot of work to be done here, and if things are done properly, we can have very good results.